America's forgotten ace, who died saving his wingman. This pilot shot down 38 Japanese planes in just 8 months. Then he broke every rule in the book trying to save a friend's life. In this story, we'll talk about the pilot who amazed Richard Bong and came close to breaking his record. Before we dive into this incredible story of heroism, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our exclusive historical stories. December 25, 1944, Christmas Day. While families back home in America were opening presents and carving turkey, Major Thomas McGuire was flying his 5th combat mission in 3 days over the Philippine Islands. He was exhausted. His hands were shaking from lack of sleep. But he had one goal stuck in his head like a splinter he couldn't dig out. He wanted to beat Eddie Rickenbacker's record. He wanted to become America's top fighter ace. And he was willing to die trying. Most people today have never heard the name Thomas McGuire. Ask someone to name a World War II fighter pilot, and they'll probably say Chuck Yeager or maybe Eddie Rickenbacker if they paid attention in history class. But McGuire? Nothing. Silence. And that's a shame because his story is one of the most intense, heartbreaking tales to come out of the Pacific War. Thomas Buchanan McGuire Jr. was born on August 1, 1920, in Ridgewood, New Jersey. He wasn't some farm boy with dreams of flying. His dad worked for a utilities company, and the family lived a pretty normal middle-class life. When Tommy was young, his parents divorced and his mother remarried. They moved to Sebring, Florida, where Tommy grew up under the hot southern sun, playing baseball and getting into the usual trouble kids get into. But Tommy had something burning inside him that most kids didn't have: an obsession. He wanted to fly, not just fly. He wanted to be the best pilot in the entire world. He would stare up at the sky for hours watching birds, watching clouds, imagining himself up there doing barrel rolls and loops. His friends thought he was weird. His stepfather thought he was wasting time. But Tommy didn't care what anyone thought. In 1938, he enrolled at the Georgia School of Technology to study aeronautical engineering. But studying planes on paper wasn't enough for him. He needed to feel the stick in his hand, the throttle under his palm, the G-forces pressing against his chest. So in 1941, right before America entered the war, he joined the Army Air Corps. Finally, he would get his chance. Training was brutal, not physically but mentally. Tommy was naturally gifted, but he had a problem. He was reckless. Instructors would watch him push his plane to the edge during practice runs and shake their heads. He would dive too steep, pull up too late, fly too close to other planes during formation practice. One instructor wrote in his file that McGuire had exceptional flying skills but lacked discipline. Another said he was going to get himself killed if he didn't learn to follow orders. But here's the thing about war. Sometimes the rules that keep you safe in training will get you killed in combat. And sometimes the guys who break all the rules are the ones who survive. McGuire earned his wings and became a flight instructor for a while. He hated it. He didn't want to teach people how to fly. He wanted to hunt enemy planes in the sky like a wolf hunting deer in the forest. He put in request after request for combat duty. Finally, in early 1943, he got his wish. He was assigned to the 475th Fighter Group, the famous Satan's Angels, and shipped out to the Pacific Theater. Now let's talk about his plane for a second, because you can't understand McGuire's story without understanding the P-38 Lightning. The P-38 was a beast. It had twin engines, twin-tail booms, and a cockpit stuck in the middle like the body of a dragonfly. It could fly over 400 miles per hour and had 4.50 caliber machine guns plus a 20 cannon packed into the nose. When you fired all those guns at once, it sounded like God tearing the sky in half. Japanese pilots called it the fork-tailed devil, and they were terrified of it. But the P-38 had problems. It was heavy. It didn't turn as tight as Japanese Zeros, and if you weren't careful, if you pushed it too hard in a dive, it would enter something called compressibility. The controls would lock up and you just keep diving straight into the ground or the ocean with no way to pull up. Pilots called it the screaming death because that's all you could do. Scream. McGuire didn't care about any of that. He loved the P-38. He felt like it was built specifically for him. He named his plane Pudgy after his wife Marilyn, who he'd married right before shipping out. He painted her name on the side along with a cartoon character. Every time he climbed into that cockpit, he was flying for her, fighting for her, killing for her. His first kill came on August 18, 1943. He was flying patrol over New Guinea when he spotted a group of Japanese bombers trying to sneak through the clouds. His squadron leader gave the order to attack, and McGuire dove down with his guns blazing. He latched onto the tail of a bomber and didn't let go. He poured round after round into the fuselage until the entire plane exploded in a ball of orange fire. He pulled up through the smoke and debris with pieces of the enemy plane bouncing off his windshield. When he landed back at base, his hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear, from excitement. That first kill changed something in him. It was like a switch flipped in his brain. He became obsessed with shooting down enemy planes. He would volunteer for every mission, even the dangerous ones that other pilots tried to avoid. He studied Japanese tactics, memorized their formations, learned their weaknesses. He read combat reports from other pilots and took notes like he was studying for an exam. And most importantly, he practiced. Every single day when he wasn't flying combat missions, he was up in the air practicing maneuvers, testing the limits of his plane, pushing himself harder and harder. By the end of 1943, he had 8 confirmed kills. That might not sound like much compared to German aces on the Eastern Front who were racking up hundreds of kills, but the Pacific was different. Japanese planes were harder to find. The distances were massive. You could fly for hours over empty ocean without seeing a single enemy aircraft. Every kill required patience, skill, and a little bit of luck. But McGuire wasn't interested in patience. He wanted kills and he wanted them fast. In 1944, the Allied forces launched a massive offensive to take back the Philippines. General Douglas MacArthur made his famous return to the islands, and the Japanese fought back with everything they had. The skies over the Philippines became a shooting gallery, and McGuire was right in the middle of it. Between October and December 1944, McGuire went on an absolute rampage. He shot down planes like he was playing a video game. October 14th, 3 kills. November 1st, 2 more. November 7th, another 3. His score kept climbing higher and higher. Other pilots started calling him the Scrapper because he would scrap with anyone, anywhere, anytime. If there was an enemy plane within 50 miles, McGuire would find it and kill it. But he wasn't just racking up kills for fun. He had a specific goal. Eddie Rickenbacker's record of 26 confirmed kills from World War I stood as the American record for over 2 decades. Another pilot, Richard Bong, was close to breaking it. Bong and McGuire were friendly rivals. They respected each other, but they both wanted that record. It became a race. Who could get to 27 first? Bong beat him to it. On December 17, 1944, Richard Bong shot down his 27th plane and broke Rickenbacker's record. McGuire was furious, not at Bong but at himself. He felt like he'd failed. He'd lost the race, but then something unexpected happened. Bong was pulled from combat and sent home. The Army didn't want to risk losing their top ace, which meant the door was wide open for McGuire to catch up. By December 25, 1944, Christmas Day, McGuire had 38 confirmed kills. He was the second highest scoring American ace of all time. Just 2 more kills and he would tie Bong. 3 more and he would be the undisputed champion. So close he could taste it. But there was a problem. McGuire was exhausted, completely burned out. He'd flown almost every single day for 3 straight months. His hands had a permanent tremor from gripping the control stick so tight. He had dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises. His squadron commander told him to take a break, get some rest, but McGuire refused. He couldn't stop now, not when he was this close. On December 26, 1944, the day after Christmas, McGuire led a four-plane patrol over Los Negros Island near the Philippines. The mission was supposed to be simple. Fly around, look for Japanese planes, shoot them down if you find them, come home. Standard stuff. The weather was bad. Heavy clouds hung low over the jungle and visibility was terrible. Most pilots would have called it off and gone back to base. But not McGuire. They spotted a Japanese fighter, a single Ki-43 Oscar, flying low over the trees. McGuire's wingman, Major Jack Rittmeyer, dove down to engage, but something went wrong. Rittmeyer overshot and suddenly found himself in a bad position with the Oscar on his tail. The Japanese pilot opened fire. Tracers ripped through the air, stitching holes in Rittmeyer's plane. McGuire didn't hesitate. He pushed his throttle forward and dove down to help. This is where things get important. McGuire's plane was carrying extra fuel tanks under the wings. These tanks gave him extra range, but they also made the plane heavier and less maneuverable. Standard procedure was to drop those tanks before entering combat. Every pilot knew this. It was drilled into their heads during training. Drop your tanks or you're dead. But McGuire didn't drop his tanks. Maybe he forgot in the heat of the moment. Maybe he thought he could handle it. Maybe he was so focused on saving his wingman that he didn't care about the rules. We'll never know. He dove down at full speed, trying to get behind the Japanese fighter and shoot it off Rittmeyer's tail. But the Oscar turned tighter than McGuire expected. He pulled back on the stick, trying to follow, pushing his plane into a hard banking turn. Too hard, too fast, too heavy with those extra fuel tanks still attached. The P-38 shuddered, the left wing dipped, and then it stalled. In aviation, a stall doesn't mean your engine stops working. It means your wings stop producing lift. The plane stops flying and starts falling. And when you're only a few hundred feet above the jungle, you don't have time to recover. McGuire fought the controls. He pushed the stick forward, trying to get the nose down and build up speed to restart the airflow over the wings. But he was too low. The plane dropped like a stone and slammed into the jungle below. The impact killed him instantly. He was 24 years old. The Japanese pilot escaped. Rittmeyer survived. McGuire died trying to save him. When news reached the base, nobody could believe it. Thomas McGuire, the second highest-scoring American ace of the war, the guy who'd survived hundreds of combat missions, dead in a training mistake. It didn't make sense. Some pilots were angry. They said he was reckless, that he should have dropped his tanks, that he broke the rules and paid the price. Others said he was a hero, that he died doing what any good wingman would do, protecting his friends. Both things are true. McGuire's body was recovered from the wreckage and buried with full military honors. In 1946, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. The citation praised his extraordinary heroism and noted that he repeatedly exposed himself to great danger to protect other pilots. His final score of 38 confirmed kills stood as the second highest American tally of World War II. Only Richard Bong, with 40 kills, scored higher. But here's what most people don't know. McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey is named after him. Every single day, thousands of people fly in and out of that airport without knowing the story of the man it's named after. They don't know about the kid from Florida who wanted to be the best pilot in the world. They don't know about the husband who painted his wife's nickname on the side of his plane. They don't know about the warrior who spent 8 months hunting enemy planes across the Pacific. And they don't know about the final mission, where he threw away every rule in the book to save a friend's life. That last part is what makes McGuire's story so powerful. He didn't die in some glorious dogfight against impossible odds. He didn't go down in flames while taking on 10 enemy planes at once. He died making a mistake, a human mistake. The kind of mistake that happens when you're exhausted and scared and trying to do the right thing in a split second with no time to think. War isn't like the movies. There's no dramatic music swelling in the background when you make your final dive. There's no slow motion as your plane hits the trees. There's just noise and confusion and terror and then nothing. McGuire knew this better than anyone. He'd seen dozens of his friends die in combat. He'd watched planes explode in midair, seen parachutes that never opened, pulled bodies out of crashed aircraft. He knew death was always one mistake away. And yet he still flew, every single day, mission after mission, kill after kill, not because he loved war or violence or death, but because he loved his country, his squadron, and his wingmen. When McGuire called for help over the radio with an enemy plane on his tail, McGuire didn't think about the fuel tanks under his wings. He didn't think about the record he was chasing. He didn't think about his own safety. He just thought about saving his friend. That's what separates the good pilots from the legends. The legends are the ones who understand that some things are more important than staying alive. After the war, many of McGuire's squadron mates said he was the most aggressive pilot they'd ever seen. He would attack when others retreated. He would push forward when others held back. He was fearless to the point of being suicidal. But they also said he was loyal. If you were in trouble, if you needed help, if you were about to die, McGuire would come for you. He would risk everything to bring you home. That loyalty killed him in the end, but it also made him immortal. Today, if you visit McGuire Air Force Base, there's a memorial dedicated to him. It's a simple stone monument with his name, his rank, and his Medal of Honor citation carved into the granite. Planes take off and land behind it all day long, their engines roaring just like the P-38 Lightning he flew into battle 80 years ago. Most people walk right past it without stopping, but every now and then, someone stops to read the inscription. And for just a moment, they remember the kid from Florida who wanted to fly. The story of Thomas McGuire isn't just about World War II or fighter planes or aerial combat. It's about the choices we make when everything is on the line. It's about the difference between following the rules and doing what's right. It's about friendship and sacrifice and the thin line between heroism and tragedy. McGuire could have dropped those fuel tanks. He could have let someone else go after the Japanese fighter. He could have climbed back to altitude and waited for a better opportunity. He could have played it safe. And if he had, he probably would have survived the war. He probably would have broken Richard Bong's record. He probably would have come home to his wife and lived a long, happy life. But that's not who he was. When his wingman needed help, he went. Simple as that, no hesitation, no second thoughts, he went. And that decision, that one split-second choice, defines his entire legacy. Not the 38 kills, not the Medal of Honor, not the Air Force Base named in his memory, but the fact that when it mattered most, when his friend was about to die, Thomas McGuire chose to act. The Japanese pilot who shot him down, if he survived the war, probably never knew the name of the American he killed that day. He probably didn't know he just ended the life of one of the greatest fighter aces in history. To him, it was just another kill, another victory, another enemy plane falling from the sky. That's the brutal mathematics of war. One man's hero is another man's target. But history remembers. The military remembers. And most importantly, the men who flew with McGuire remember. They remember his voice crackling over the radio during missions. They remember the way he would push his plane to the absolute limit, dancing on the edge of disaster mission after mission. They remember the times he saved their lives, the times he covered their retreat, the times he took the most dangerous position in formation so they wouldn't have to. And they remember December 26, 1944, the day the scrapper went down, the day Thomas McGuire proved that being a fighter ace isn't about how many kills you get. It's about who you are when someone needs you most. In the years after World War II, as veterans came home and tried to build normal lives, many of McGuire's squadron mates struggled to talk about what happened. Some felt guilty that they'd survived while he didn't. Others felt angry that he'd thrown his life away over a moment of recklessness. But most of them, when they were old men sitting in VFW halls with drinks in their hands and tears in their eyes, said the same thing. They said Tommy McGuire was the best pilot they'd ever seen. And they said he died exactly the way he lived, pushing forward when everyone else held back, fighting when others ran, protecting his brothers until his very last breath. That's the real story of Thomas McGuire, not the statistics or the records or the awards, but the character of the man inside the cockpit, the kind of person who sees a friend in trouble and doesn't hesitate, the kind of person who knows the rules but breaks them anyway when lives are at stake, the kind of person who understands that some things are worth dying for. His widow, Marilyn, never remarried. She spent the rest of her life honoring his memory, attending memorial services, speaking to veteran groups, making sure people never forgot what her husband did. When she died in 1992, she was buried next to him, together again after nearly 50 years apart. The P-38 Lightning that McGuire flew, the Pudgy series aircraft he named after her, no longer exists. It was scrapped after the war like thousands of other planes. The jungle where he crashed has long since reclaimed the wreckage. Nature doesn't care about human wars or human heroes. The trees grow, the rain falls, and the earth slowly swallows up the evidence that anyone was ever there. But the story survives. That's the power of a story like this. Long after the physical evidence is gone, long after everyone who knew him personally has died, the story remains. And as long as people keep telling it, Thomas McGuire keeps flying. Every time someone learns about him for the first time, he lives again. Every time someone reads his Medal of Honor citation and thinks about what it means to sacrifice everything for your brothers, he lives again. Every time a young pilot in training learns about the dangers of keeping your external fuel tanks during combat and learns that lesson because Tommy McGuire died teaching it, he lives again. That's immortality, not living forever but mattering forever. And Thomas Buchanan McGuire Jr., the kid from Florida who wanted to be the best pilot in the world, who chased glory across the Pacific seas, who died at 24 years old trying to save a friend, definitely matters. 38 kills in 8 months. Second highest scoring American ace of World War II, Medal of Honor recipient, and a guy who threw it all away to save someone else. That's Thomas McGuire, the man, the pilot, the legend. Most people will never know his name, but now you do. Subscribe for more forgotten war stories.